There is something happening inside your body right now at this exact moment that most doctors will never tell you about during a standard checkup. It's not because they don't care. It's not because the information doesn't exist. It's because the connection is so new, so groundbreaking, so far outside of what most medical training covers that the majority of physicians practicing today were never taught it. And yet this connection, this invisible biological thread linking two organs you'd never think to associate with each other, may be the single most important factor determining whether you live a long, healthy life or whether you become another statistic in the most lethal epidemic the modern world has ever produced. Heart disease kills more people every single year than any other cause of death on the planet, more than cancer, more than accidents, more than all infectious diseases combined. And for decades, we've been told the story of why. Cholesterol, saturated fat, genetics, smoking, lack of exercise, those things matter. But they are not the whole story. Not even close. Because the research emerging right now is pointing to something else entirely. Something that lives inside you. Something you've probably been slowly destroying without knowing it. And once you understand what it is, you will never look at your health the same way again. Here is what nobody is talking about at the scale they should be. Your heart and your gut are not separate systems operating independently of each other. They are in constant, active biological communication, sending signals back and forth through pathways that scientists are only now beginning to fully map. And the health of one is profoundly, measurably, undeniably dependent on the health of the other. When your gut is inflamed, your heart is under attack. When the bacterial ecosystem living in your digestive system is disrupted, imbalanced, depleted, and most people's is more than they realize, your cardiovascular system pays the price in ways that show up years later as a heart attack, as arterial disease, as heart failure that seemingly comes out of nowhere. The gut-heart connection is one of the most significant medical discoveries of the past decade, and almost nobody outside of a handful of research laboratories knows it exists. Let me ask you something personal, and I want you to actually think about this rather than just read past it. When did you last feel genuinely well? Not just the absence of obvious illness, not just I'm not sick today, but actually deeply well, energetic in a way that felt effortless, clear-headed without needing caffeine to get there, sleeping deeply and waking up feeling like the sleep actually did something, digesting food without bloating or discomfort or that vague heaviness that you've probably started to accept as just normal. If you're struggling to remember if that version of yourself feels like it belongs to a younger decade, I want you to consider the possibility that what you're experiencing is not simply aging. It's not just stress. It's not inevitable. What you may be experiencing is the slow, cumulative consequence of a gut that has been under assault for years, and a heart that has been quietly suffering the consequences of that assault in ways that haven't yet become loud enough to force you to pay attention. But they will. That's the terrifying part about cardiovascular disease. It is silent for years. It builds in the dark, in the lining of your arteries, in the inflammatory cascade triggered by a disrupted gut, and it announces itself when the damage is already done. The word that sits at the center of this entire conversation is inflammation. Not the inflammation you feel when you sprain your ankle or get a cut. That kind of inflammation is healthy. It's your immune system doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and it resolves when the injury heals. The inflammation that is killing people quietly, slowly, invisibly is something different. It's called chronic low-grade inflammation, and it is one of the most dangerous conditions a human body can be in, precisely because you often can't feel it. There's no pain. There's no obvious symptom. There might be fatigue or brain fog or digestive discomfort, but those things are so common, so normalized in modern life that most people attribute them to stress or poor sleep or getting older and never connect them to what's actually happening biologically. What's actually happening is that the immune system has been triggered into a state of constant low-level activation. And in that state, it produces inflammatory compounds that travel through the bloodstream and damage the endothelium, the thin, delicate lining of your blood vessels. When the endothelium is damaged, it becomes sticky. Cholesterol and other particles accumulate. Plaques form. And those plaques over years and decades narrow your arteries and set the stage for a heart attack. This is not new science. The inflammatory theory of heart disease has been building for 2 decades. But what is new, what is genuinely paradigm shifting, is the understanding of where so much of that inflammation originates. It starts in the gut. Specifically, it starts with the breakdown of something called the intestinal barrier. The lining of your intestines that, when healthy, acts as a tightly regulated gateway between the outside world and your bloodstream. Think of it as a border crossing with very strict customs. Nutrients get through, toxins don't. Bacteria stay on their side of the wall. When that barrier is intact, everything works the way it's supposed to. But when the barrier is damaged, when it develops what researchers call increased permeability, and what popular media has started calling leaky gut, things that should stay in the intestines start crossing into the bloodstream. Bacterial fragments, inflammatory compounds, lipopolysaccharides, which are essentially pieces of bacterial cell walls that trigger a powerful immune response when they enter circulation. When these substances reach the bloodstream, the immune system goes on high alert, and the resulting inflammation doesn't stay local. It travels, it reaches the heart, it reaches the arteries, and it starts doing damage. The research connecting intestinal permeability to cardiovascular disease is accumulating rapidly. Studies have found elevated levels of those bacterial cell wall fragments, the lipopolysaccharides, in the blood of patients with heart disease. Other research has shown that people with cardiovascular disease have measurably different gut microbiome compositions compared to healthy controls, less diversity, fewer of the protective bacterial species that produce anti-inflammatory compounds, more of the species associated with inflammation and metabolic disruption. And critically, some of that microbial difference precedes the heart disease. It's not just a consequence of being sick. The gut dysbiosis appears to come first, driving the inflammatory cascade that eventually manifests as cardiovascular disease years down the line. This is not a peripheral finding. This is a rewriting of how we understand the origin of the most lethal disease in the modern world. There's a specific compound that I need to tell you about because it sits at the center of the gut-heart connection in a way that no amount of cholesterol discussion can capture. It's called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. And if you've never heard of it, that's exactly the problem. TMAO is produced when certain bacteria in your gut break down compounds found in red meat and eggs, specifically choline and carnitine. When those bacteria metabolize these compounds, they produce a substance that your liver then converts into TMAO and releases into the bloodstream. And elevated levels of TMAO in the blood are strongly associated with increased risk of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death. The landmark research on TMAO came from the Cleveland Clinic, one of the most respected cardiovascular institutions in the world. Their studies showed that people with high TMAO levels had significantly higher rates of major cardiovascular events, and that this association held even after controlling for traditional risk factors like cholesterol and blood pressure. TMAO was an independent predictor of cardiovascular risk, meaning the bacteria in your gut, in response to what you eat, are producing a substance that directly increases your risk of dying from heart disease. But here's where it gets layered, because TMAO is not just about red meat. The same foods don't produce the same TMAO levels in different people. Why? Because different people have different gut bacteria. If you have the species of bacteria that metabolize choline and carnitine into TMAO precursors, eating red meat raises your TMAO substantially. If you don't have those species, if your microbiome has a different composition, the same meal produces far less TMAO, which means your individual cardiovascular risk from diet is not just about what you eat, it's about what's living in your gut that determines how your body processes what you eat. Two people can sit down and eat the exact same meal and walk away with fundamentally different cardiovascular risk profiles based solely on the composition of their gut bacteria. This is not theoretical. This has been demonstrated in controlled studies. And it means that personalized nutrition, a nutrition tailored to the individual microbiome, is not a luxury wellness concept. It may be a medical necessity. Now let me connect this to something you actually feel in your daily life, because I think the conversation about heart disease often feels abstract until it's happening to someone you love or happening to you. Let's talk about energy. Most people in the modern world are chronically tired, not the tired that comes from a hard workout or a busy week that sleep can fix. The tired that is there when you wake up, that accompanies you through the day, that caffeine blunts but doesn't cure. That fatigue is one of the most consistent and overlooked signs of gut dysbiosis and chronic low-grade inflammation. When your gut is inflamed, when your intestinal barrier is compromised, when inflammatory compounds are circulating in your bloodstream, your cells are working in a hostile environment. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside every cell, are particularly sensitive to inflammation. When they're functioning in an inflamed environment, their efficiency drops. You produce less energy at the cellular level, and no matter how much you sleep or how much coffee you drink, You cannot override a mitochondrial deficit caused by systemic inflammation. The fatigue you feel may not be in your mind. It may not be a matter of motivation or discipline. It may be your gut telling you, in the only language it has, that something is wrong. The same is true for brain fog. The gut-brain axis, the communication network between your digestive system and your central nervous system, is a two-way highway. What happens in the gut sends signals directly to the brain via the vagus nerve, one of the longest and most complex nerves in the body. When the gut is inflamed, those signals are disrupted. The clarity of thought you should have access to gets muddied by inflammatory interference. Concentration becomes an effort. Memory feels less reliable. Decision-making is slower and more exhausting. These are not personality traits or signs of laziness. They are neurological symptoms of gut dysfunction, and they matter not just for your quality of life, but for your cardiovascular health, because cognitive decline and cardiovascular disease share many of the same inflammatory pathways and frequently occur together. Treating the gut is not separate from protecting the brain. It is the same intervention, approached from the same biological root. I want to talk about stress because it is impossible to have this conversation honestly without it. Stress is not just a psychological experience. It is a biological state that has profound consequences for gut health and therefore for cardiovascular health. When you are chronically stressed, and if you are a person living a modern life, the probability that you are operating under some level of chronic stress is extremely high. Your body releases cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Cortisol, in short bursts, is useful. It helps you respond to immediate threats. But chronic cortisol elevation does something damaging to the gut. It increases intestinal permeability. It weakens the tight junctions between the cells of your intestinal lining. It disrupts the composition of your gut microbiome, reducing the diversity and abundance of protective bacterial species. And it amplifies inflammatory signaling throughout the body. The stress you carry, the work pressure, the financial anxiety, the relationship tension, the background hum of worry that most people have simply accepted as the price of modern living, is actively degrading your gut barrier and, through it, increasing your cardiovascular risk. This is not metaphorical. This is not stress is bad for you in the vague, dismissible way that we've all heard 1,000 times. This is a specific mechanistic pathway from psychological state to gut damage to arterial inflammation to heart disease. And understanding that pathway matters because it means that managing stress is not a lifestyle luxury, it is cardiac medicine. Sleep is another piece of this that most people dramatically underestimate. The research on sleep and cardiovascular health is unambiguous. People who consistently sleep less than 7 hours per night have significantly higher rates of heart disease, stroke, and hypertension. Most people know this, at least in a vague way. What most people don't know is the gut-mediated mechanism through which sleep deprivation damages the heart. When you don't sleep enough, your gut microbiome shifts. Studies have shown that even a few nights of shortened sleep produce measurable changes in gut bacterial composition, specifically a reduction in the anti-inflammatory species that produce short-chain fatty acids and an increase in pro-inflammatory species. Those changes amplify systemic inflammation. And that inflammation, arriving at the arteries night after night, year after year, accelerates the very cardiovascular damage that the sleep deprivation is already contributing to through other pathways. It's compounding. The gut and the heart are both suffering simultaneously, and each makes the other's situation worse. There is also the question of the foods we've been told are bad for us, and here the story becomes genuinely complicated in ways that deserve honest discussion. For decades, dietary fat was the primary villain in the cardiovascular disease narrative. Low-fat diets were recommended, fat was removed from processed foods, and replaced often with sugar and refined carbohydrates. That substitution was not an improvement. The evidence now suggests that the low-fat dietary era may have actually worsened population-level cardiovascular health by dramatically increasing sugar intake and reducing beneficial dietary fats that the gut microbiome depends on. The bacteria in your gut need certain fats, particularly the kinds found in olive oil, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, and avocado, to function properly. They use these fats to maintain the integrity of the intestinal barrier. They ferment them into compounds that regulate inflammation. When those fats are absent from the diet and replaced by refined carbohydrates and added sugar, the gut barrier weakens and the inflammatory cascade intensifies. The decades-long war on fat may have been one of the greatest nutritional policy mistakes in modern history, not because fat is universally healthy, but because the sweeping demonization of dietary fat led to dietary patterns that were actively harmful to gut health and therefore to heart health. Sugar, on the other hand, and specifically the refined added sugar that now appears in virtually every processed food on the shelf, feeds exactly the wrong bacteria. There are species of bacteria in the gut that thrive on sugar. They are not the species you want to dominate your microbiome. When you eat a high-sugar diet, you're essentially conducting a selective breeding program for the bacteria most likely to produce inflammation, most likely to weaken your intestinal barrier, most likely to increase your TMAO levels and your systemic inflammatory burden. The average person in the modern world consumes somewhere between 17 and 20 teaspoons of added sugar per day. The recommended limit is 6 for women and 9 for men. The excess is not just going to your waistline. It is going to your gut, feeding the wrong bacteria, driving inflammation, and quietly contributing to the cardiovascular disease that will affect nearly half of all adults over the course of their lifetime. I want to address something that I know is coming up for a lot of people right now, the question of genetics. Because the immediate response many people have when they hear about heart disease risk is, well, my father had heart disease, my grandfather had it, it's in my genes, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I understand why that story is comforting in a way, even though it's ultimately disempowering. It's comforting because it removes responsibility. If it's genetic, then it's not your fault, and it's not something you could have done differently. But the science of epigenetics, the study of how environment and behavior influence which genes are expressed, is dismantling this fatalistic view in compelling ways. Yes, genetics matter. A family history of heart disease is a real risk factor that should not be dismissed. But what the research on the gut-heart connection is showing is that the expression of genetic cardiovascular risk is profoundly influenced by the microbiome. The same genetic predisposition produces very different outcomes in people with healthy, diverse gut microbiomes versus those with depleted, dysbiotic ones. Your genes may load the gun, but your gut environment may be what pulls the trigger, and that environment is something you can influence. Not completely, not perfectly, but meaningfully, in ways that could determine whether that genetic risk becomes a diagnosis or remains a predisposition you never fully express. Let me bring in something that I think is one of the most powerful and underappreciated pieces of evidence in this entire discussion, the story of the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet has the most robust evidence base of any dietary pattern for cardiovascular protection. Study after study, in population after population, has shown that people who eat in the Mediterranean style, abundant vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, olive oil, fish, moderate dairy, minimal processed food, and red meat, have dramatically lower rates of heart disease than people eating typical Western diets. For decades, researchers tried to identify the active ingredient. Was it the olive oil, the fish oil, the reduced saturated fat, the fiber? They ran trials isolating each component, and while some components showed individual benefit, none of them fully explained the magnitude of the effect. What the gut microbiome research is now suggesting is that the Mediterranean diet's power may lie substantially in its effect on the microbiome. It is one of the most pro-microbiome dietary patterns that exists. It feeds the bacteria that produce anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids. It starves the bacteria that produce inflammatory compounds like TMAO precursors. It maintains and enhances intestinal barrier integrity.